Hi there. How's it going, everybody? Thank you for tuning in. I am Jamie Hernandez, the host of the Ins and Outs podcast with Mackie, which is a show about awesome gear and awesome people. We bring you musicians, engineers, podcasters, streamers, and even sometimes the occasional Mackoid. If you're new to our channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button on your favorite platform to get all the latest Mackie updates as soon as they are out. So today we are live. Thank you for joining us again. And speaking of awesome gear and awesome people, today we're joined by Mackie's Director of Product Marketing to dive into what makes the new SRM V-Class the loudest, best sounding, most technologically advanced loudspeaker Mackie has to offer. Matt Redman, how's it going?
Hey Jamie, how are you? Thanks to you for inviting me, and thanks to everybody who's joined us. I really look forward to exploring this with you guys.
I do too, man. So before we dive into the awesomeness that is V-Class, can you start off by telling everyone what you do at Mackie and a little brand history?
Yeah, and I'll start with the brand actually. So for those that don't know, Mackie has been around for over 30 years. We were founded around a single mixer, the LM1602, completely changed the landscape of affordable mixing, just making music making on the stage and in the studio easy for all of our target customers, musicians, all that stuff. About 10 years later, we did it again with loudspeakers with the original SRM, which we'll touch a little bit more on later today, but doing the same thing, completely changing the game in the affordable powered loudspeaker market, making it accessible for bands and DJs and that. And we did it again in the studio, again 20 years ago with the original HR824 studio monitor. So, you fast forward to today, and Mackie's become a brand that's not only differentiated and established themselves as a powerhouse in these core categories, but we've really expanded out the ecosystem to a brand that makes mics and headphones and products for the stage, studio, on the go, at home, etc. So I joined the company about 15 years ago. I spent most of my time at the company doing product development and product management. And then for the last 3 years, I've overseen product development at all of Mackie, including our loudspeaker designs and also our product training team, industrial design, and more. So it's really an honor to be in the chair, sort of overseeing the product roadmap of a brand as venerable as Mackie that Greg established so many years ago. So excited to talk about that and excited to be here to talk about our launch today as well.
Yeah, for sure. So we obviously seem to cover all the bases, and aside from making products in the studio and on the go, Mackie really seems to be widely known as a loudspeaker brand. Would you agree?
Absolutely. It's a huge part of our business. Like I said, over 20 years ago, there really weren't any other affordable powered loudspeaker options. So SRM just sort of, showed up everywhere you went, whether it was a pool party, a house of worship, a club, wherever. So yeah.
Yeah, so and we're obviously here to talk about SRM V-Class, but I think it's important to kind of touch base on a little history of SRM, if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess it's worth pointing out, believe it or not, Mackie didn't actually invent powered loudspeaker technology, but it was only available in much higher price points from brands that served studios, not studios, I'm sorry, stadiums is the word I was looking for, other big live sound venues. And so for us to take that technology and make it affordable to the masses, again, we really established Mackie as a market leader in powered loudspeakers because the product was so great sounding, so affordable, and there simply wasn't anything to compete with it. And so we owned the loudspeaker market for easily 10 years, if not more, at that price point, and have since, rolled more products into that, like our Thump loudspeakers, DRM, etc. But fast forward to today, and this year in 2020, an SRM V-Class is one of the things that makes it so exciting is as a product person, is you're taking this venerable 20-year established thing, and it's also kind of scary, to be candid, right? Like, we got to get this thing right. And so to have the opportunity to facelift an industry standard like that is a challenge, that we took upon ourselves, and a mission that we took upon ourselves to again reclaim the number one spot in the loudspeaker category. That was the goal and continues to be the goal. And so in doing that, we really made an effort to make this thing the loudest, best sounding, most advanced thing we've ever made. So it's really just, I look forward to digging into the details with you because it is a pretty compelling product.
Well, thank you for that history. So that has definitely led us to V class. Yay, V class. So we call V class the loudest, best sounding, most advanced loudspeaker we've ever produced. That's a substantial claim. Let's start with the loudest. Is it true, and how do we do it?
Yeah, I'd love to walk through each one of those claims because, right, they are substantial claims, and to somebody reading it, it may just sound like marketing. So I think it's really worth breaking all of that down so that people understand that there is some truth to it, lots of truth to it. So on the power side, I'm going to talk about a couple different things. As with anything, it all starts with the amplifier. Take power from the wall into the product, right into the amplifier. We have been iterating on an amplifier platform at Mackie for the last several years that we just continue to make better, more powerful, more efficient. So this amplifier that's in V class is the best iteration of our platform yet. So again, more power there. But we've got Class D universal power supply, so you can use this product anywhere in the world without needing a separate adapter or anything. It also has built-in power factor correction. What that means is if you're running off of like a generator or suboptimal power, say in a third world country or somewhere like that, just suboptimal power, the product sort of corrects for the power anomalies so that it's always running super stable. So just from that standpoint, and I'll mention it here, the product has a 6-year warranty in the US because we believe in it. So when we're able to correct for those anomalies so that the power coming from the wall doesn't blow up the amplifier, that's one of the things that plays into reliability in addition to the power and efficiency that we're talking about. So all of that power goes into 2 transducers. The first that I'll talk about is the woofer, the low frequency transducer. And what makes these different and special is not just how much we spend on them, but so the product itself is about 40 pounds. 5 pounds of that comes from the magnet and the motor assembly inside of the speaker itself. The thing is so robust and it can handle so much power that between that and the suspension that's inside of the woofer, it has lots and lots of room to freely travel, which means you don't get distortion or breakup, or when you turn the product up to 11, you don't hear it compressing and having trouble and struggling like so many products do, right? So at maximum volume, we're still getting this ridiculous amount of low frequency output just from the power side. And we'll get to the other points later. The other thing, the compression driver we'll talk about next, is also a unique component. So one thing that's fairly common in most loudspeakers, pretty much all loudspeakers under $1,000, is that they use some form of metal, most frequently titanium compression driver. And as you continue to provide power to the compression driver, titanium and metal in particular tends to get shrill and kind of break up. So beyond just being able to send a bunch of power to a compression driver, the high frequency driver, which is where all your articulation comes from, you also need it to sound good when it comes out. And so there's a mix of power handling. Ours uniquely has this polyamide material, which is a little bit of a rubber instead of a metal. And the benefit of that, and this is a technology used in stadium gear as well, the benefit of that is that it not only gets ridiculously loud, but it does so effortlessly, and it sounds just so smooth and buttery. And so those 3 things, just talking about power alone, before we get into any of the other components and DSP and all that stuff, pure raw power and amazing transducers contribute a massive amount to the optimization of getting this thing to be as loud as it possibly can.
Wow, thank you for that. So without even diving into what's under the hood, V-Class sounds like a pretty smart speaker so far. What do we do extra that makes it best sounding?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that's the second claim, right? Louder, better sounding. So of course the amplifier and the transducers play into that as well. It's not just about loudness. It's really important to have an efficient, great sounding amp with built-in DSP. It's really important to have drivers that are not only perfectly power matched to the amplifier, but that are also made of great materials. So again, even that the X-Max and the travel of the woofer that makes it distortion free contributes to the sound. And again, the high frequency driver and that polymer material that is unique to SRM V class that makes it sound so smooth. add in our custom Simex horn. Now, what's different and what's special about this horn is that it can be loaded lower at a lower crossover frequency than anything else that it competes against. One of the challenges of any two-way loudspeaker design is that there's only two speakers, the woofer and the tweeter, that are trying to put out this completely full, accurate frequency range. And so some products can sound a little bit tinny or a little bit woofy or kind of scooped in the middle because the crossover is not optimal. By being able to lower the crossover, we are able to create the smoothest, most flat frequency response combined with the materials that we're using. So basically through the crossover where all of your mid-range lives, microphone, vocal intelligibility, acoustic instruments, pianos, all those things sound like they're meant to sound like you're in the room with them. So that horn super contributes to that frequency response. And then I'll bring in one piece of technology that we can talk about the other tech in a minute, but a critical component of the technology that goes into why these things sound so good is some of the DSP, the advanced impulse DSP. So before I get there, again, we've got amazing power, perfectly matched to these amazing drivers with this amazing horn. So before we even add in any of our secret sauce, we're starting with a recipe for success and a product that would sound great even if we didn't do anything else to it. Yeah. But again, we really wanted to go the extra mile, right? So what that means, advanced impulse DSP, I'll start with this. Many loudspeaker competitors, a lot of them don't do any crazy secret sauce. Some of the better known brands, for example, do something called FIR filtering, which is finite impulse response. What that means is, I'll start with this. So when you put sound through any pair of speakers, it stands to be colored, right? I mean, you've experienced that, I'm sure. The sort of cheaper your speakers are, the less accurate something sounds or whatever. So that's because the components themselves are part of the signal chain. They contribute to the sound, right? So in the case of FIR filtering, one of the best examples for this sort of correction that we need to do is that a horn, like that you would put a compression driver in that broadcasts all your mid-high frequencies, if you don't do anything to it, a horn is going to sound like this, right? And nobody wants to hear this kind of echo chamber sort of honky sound. So if you know what your original integrities of the signal is going in, and you know by measuring it the negative anomalies that the horn itself is imparting into the sound, you can correct for that. Some of our competitors do that, but they do it on axis, right? So they measure the speaker by putting a microphone in front of it, and then they do a little bit of correction that helps benefit the signal chain and the sound and the acoustic output, but only when you're standing directly in front of the speaker. So the secret sauce that we have a really, really expensive machine from a company called Klippel that's based out of Germany. And what this machine does is it not only measures on axis, but it measures 360 degrees around the product. What happens when we do that is that we capture all of the anomalies, not only from straight on, but around the entire product. And that results in this 3D bubble graphic that we're going to bring up now. So you can see the anomalies in time and in space and in the frequency domain. And you can go in and surgically make adjustments so that the integrity, not just of your signal, but your acoustic output is corrected for through the entire frequency spectrum, right? So not only when you're standing in front of the product, but everywhere in the venue, you can walk across the entire sound field and you won't hear any comb filtering, any lobing. You'll just get consistent sound throughout the entire venue. So that is something else that we do. Before we get into any of the other stuff, like I said, we just talked about how powerful this thing is. And between the drivers and the secret sauce of Advanced Impulse DSP, we are leaps and bounds in the clarity department above not just some of our similarly priced competitors, but honestly some products that are, pretty expensive.
Yeah, for sure. So we've definitely talked about why it's the loudest. We've talked about why it's the best sounding, using our secret sauce. I love that term. So beyond that tech already explained, what makes it even more advanced? Why is it the most advanced speaker Mackie's produced? SRM was awesome back in the days, but what's different now?
Yep. No, that's a great question. Stuff has changed a lot. I mean, technology has evolved so much in 20 years, and a loudspeaker used to be just that. But we can do so much more with the different technologies that have developed, and we've put our most full-featured technology package yet into this product, and it offers some value adds that no one else in the market is adding to. So, just starting with the rear of the product and the user interface, if you are in the market for loudspeakers, you may know that most of them don't have very good sort of readouts or displays. Some of them have no screen, some of them have monocolor screens. Ours is a full color built-in digital mixer with a screen knob user interface where you can see everything that's going on with the speaker. You can adjust the individual levels of what's going into channels 1 and 2. You can EQ each of those channels as though you had a separate built-in mixer, because you do. There's a mixer built into this product. You can do lots of other things with it too. You can change the voicing mode. So, if it's in the flat mode, great. If you want a little more sparkle, put it into the club mode. You'll get some low and high frequency bump. If you want to use it as a stage monitor, you put it into monitor mode. And when you couple it with a stage, it sucks out all that undesirable low end for you. So you don't have to do a ton of, surgical mixing and stuff. It's got a speech mode with a compressor built in. So, if somebody doesn't know what they're doing really, and you just plug a microphone in and put it in speech mode, you've got EQ and compression perfectly dialed in so that you'll sound way better than if you're just talking into a mic through a traditional speaker. So a couple other things include alignment delay. So if you have a really big venue where you find you need to place, fills that are delay stacks 100 feet out, 150 feet out, whatever, we accommodate that by having a calculator built in that not only times out in feet or meters, but also it'll delay the sound so that you don't have to do the measurement yourself.
Yeah.
Basically, you know how many feet you are, it'll delay the acoustics perfectly for you. So there's so much built into it. I haven't even touched on it all. The last thing I'll kind of touch on before I move into another point is indoor outdoor voicing modes. Nobody else is doing this. What this means is, if you have a speaker indoors, it sounds great. It sounds like it does. But if you take that same speaker outside without doing anything to it, when you don't have all of the frequency buildup that you would inside of a room for the various room nodes where you get extra low frequency buildup and mid high frequency buildup, what happens when you take a speaker outside is you lose that stuff and your speaker can sound, kind of anemic or sterile. So we correct for that phenomenon by having outdoor voicing modes that bring back in the low frequencies and mid high frequencies that are lost. So the speaker sounds just as good and loud outdoors as it does indoors. So much that you can do on the product itself through that screen knob interface on the rear. But the next thing is even crazier. This is, again, advancements in technology using a Bluetooth protocol that is, we've done some really unique things that you can not just stream to the product. Lots of people do that. That's easy.
Yeah.
What you can do with ours is stream not only to one or two products, but also control from the SRM Connect app, which will also bring a couple images up on the screen. From that application, you can do everything that you could from the product as well. So you can stream music to one speaker in mono or in stereo. You can control each individual speaker, the inputs and outputs of each of the speakers that you're paired with. You can put them in stereo mode, so you have left, right, and you're not just streaming to them, but controlling the levels or the inputs and outputs of both. Another super cool feature is zone mode as well. So if you have an event like a wedding where you have one speaker indoors and one speaker outdoors, you can put them in zone mode where you're controlling the inputs and the outputs and the processing and the levels of each different environment, each different speaker in each different environment, all from the same phone. So our app implementation is leaps and bounds above what a lot of the competitors are doing. So all told, it's a more robust technology package, not just versus anything historically in the Mackie lineup, but in the market, right? So I'll just put a finer point on all of that, which is that between the ridiculously powerful and efficient amplifiers, the most expensive, best sounding, highest quality transducers that we've ever put into any of our loudspeakers, this custom horn, which is completely new to our lineup, advanced impulse DSP, all the product control that you get on board with the full color screen, and then add in the streaming and the control that you get with the app. There is no other loudspeaker under $1,000 that sounds as good, gets as loud, or offers the customer as many features as this product. So we are proud of it, right? So to your earlier point, all of those claims that you made that sound like bold marketing claims, they do sound like marketing claims, but guess what? They're all true.
We can definitely back them up, and I think you did. So thank you for all that. Well, it's different coming from our mouths. I'd like to bring in a guest to talk a little bit about their use in it. We've talked about what makes it the loudspeaker it is. It's a great time to bring in Cypher, who not only has 20 years of experience in the audio industry, but he's actively put these to the test. So we're going to welcome Cypher to the floor. Yep, you're sideways, buddy.
Hey. Yeah, I know. Sorry about that, guys. Something got a little flipped around on my settings here. If you want to give me a minute, I can go ahead and correct it, or I can continue and we can flow into it.
Why don't you go ahead and correct it? Because I wanted to interject a point right there while you're playing around with that, which is like Jamie was kind of leading up to, when we make a loudspeaker, it's one thing for us to be excited about it, but it can't just be a marketing claim. It has to be true. It has to be believable. And it to me, as a product owner, product manager, my bold claims don't mean anything unless they resonate with the target customer. And so that's one of the reasons we wanted to bring Cypher onto our show, because he doesn't work for us and he's used these products in the real world. So hearing from somebody else on the matter, I think would be beneficial. So let's see if he's still sideways or not.
And also for people leaving questions in the comments, we will get to that at the end. We're going to do a live Q&A. So if you can just pause for a second if you have questions, we'll get to those at the end. So thank you guys for joining us and hanging tight.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, here we go. And you
All
have
right.
the Mackie green color on. I love it.
I did it special for you guys. It's nice.
Cypher, thank you.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Happy to be part of the Mackie roundtable for today and share a little bit about what I know.
Well, cool, man. Well, why don't we just start off by telling our guests a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. So I've been in audio for about 20 years. I started as a DJ. I've been a producer. I've been signed on 5 different labels and internationally been played and have top 10 tracks in the electronic music scene. I originally started in hip hop and then moved my way over to electronic music. And from there, I got more into education. So I did partnered with schools. I do stuff with the LAUSD school district and done career panels and stuff with the Girl Scouts of America. And I moved into product development a little bit. So I was able to participate, being hands-on, developing some products in the DJ world and the audio world and stuff like that, which I absolutely love. And beyond there, I've been able to go more into sound design. Because I've been doing a lot of installations in the LA area, comedy clubs, gyms, clubs, bars, you name it, and every situation is a little unique. So I get to pick and choose what I get to use, where I would use it. So I started, back in the day on Cero in Vegas and Yamahas and stuff, and I kind of just flew my way through the different brands over time, because when you're starting DJ, you're obviously a struggling artist, so you don't always get pick of the litter, but I've been lucky enough to be able to experience all these different brands in different settings, and I've kind of formulated my favorites or my go-tos over the years. And Mackie's always been in that picture, and it's pretty cool what you guys have been doing. So I'm excited to talk about it with you today.
Well, thank you, Cypher. And with such an extensive background, it makes sense that you'd have a lot of needs and uses for loudspeakers. So thank you for coming on and sharing with everybody. Can you dive in more into how you've been using them lately? What are your various needs and uses with loudspeakers, just like in general?
Sure. So, obviously, usually loudspeakers don't find their way into my studio because they're loudspeakers, and any engineer would be like, "That's crazy." Well, these SRMs, they're flat response. So I decided I want to put that to the test, because I am very, very picky about my sound design. So I brought them into my studio. I have them as wedges on the floor, and I've been comparing between other monitors that I have that I use, and I'm like blown away. Like, I love using these things now. Everything from watching movies to making music. It's a great reference for me, because they're they're so powerful. Usually I don't make music at that loud of a level, but being able to have clear sound reproduction like all the way through, usually when you're using like a 15-inch or a 12-inch and you start cranking it to 9 or 10, the sound just completely falls apart. It's almost hurtful to listen to music you make on bad speakers because it makes you feel like a worse artist. So, and I know where my audio's at. I know where my frequency should be. And so being able to cross-reference it to the SRM, clarity. I was like blown away, cranked them up all the way. I never usually do that because I'm always scared of, overblowing something. But they held their own. I mean, they sound completely clear, very easy to use. I hardline it in a lot of the time in the studio, but if for the Bluetooth application, I'll go into that more a little bit, but that's simplicity in design is really important for me as an artist because I'm always on the move. I got to go. I have 100 other things that are going on at the same time, and I need something that's reliable 100% and something that's going to give me 100% of the quality that I'm looking for. Otherwise, I don't really mess with it. And for that reason, I have stayed away from anything like this going on in my studio, but they perform exactly as they should and better. And I'm very happy with usually the last 10% or so that you crank a speaker is really where it starts to fall apart. And these are consistent all the way through. I've never heard any speaker kind of like it. So it's the claims that they're the clearest and the best quality of Mackie design. Yeah, absolutely. I've played with the Thumps and the SRMs of the past. These absolutely are superior. In terms of being the loudest, I think my neighbors could tell you, yes, they're definitely the loudest. I watched 4 Jurassic Park movies over the weekend, and every time the Tyrannosaurus Rex came on, I would crank it all the way. And it was like being in a movie theater. And my girlfriend was joking around saying that all the dogs around us are now scared of our house, So, and usually that's not something that I would enjoy doing. I don't like listening to loud sound just so it's loud. It has to be crystal clear. And I think the older you get and the more into audio design you get, your ears and your mind are able to pick apart those anomalies or those gaps or those areas that it's a little too loud, or you can tell someone's overcompensating, on the design. There's none of that here. And I'm talking from the perspective of a guy who, when I came in as a DJ, I didn't know anything. I didn't know why some speakers sounded better than others. It took me years and years and years to understand some of these concepts. But as the Mackie guys will talk more about the technical side, I'm just here kind of to tell you on the layman side, or just maybe the DJ side, there's specific reasons these sound so good, and it actually does translate into real life. It's not all just fugazi, so that's really awesome to be able to say and mean.
So if I can interject there for a minute, because I actually saw one of the questions or comments that we got was the idea that the reason that loudspeakers use metal compression drivers is because they're so robust and they can do, high power handling versus softer dome polymer diaphragm. The sort of direct response to that angle is that you may be thinking of the sort of like silk dome tweeters or lower power handling, drivers that go into like studio monitors or whatever. But there's some super loud stadium grade stuff. And when I'm talking about a polyamide material that's sort of rubbery, it's that robust. And so, Cypher can tell you his opinion, because of course I'm going to tell you, how it compares to the competition. But relative to some of the primary competition, you got to hear it for yourself. But again, we do this by design. We do lots of A/B listening. We want to make sure these products sound fantastic. And what Cypher was just talking about, when you turn these things up, like they don't hurt your ears or whatever, that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, is that a titanium compression driver driven at maximum volumes will fatigue your ears. The frequency response of that driver is extremely jagged when you're getting up into that, and that's actually what hurts your ears. Is if there's an uneven frequency response, you've got particular frequencies that are fatiguing, that make it hard to hear and that give you tinnitus after the show. So our polymer material is so robust that even at those ridiculously loud volumes, it still holds flat. And so I think that the phenomenon that Cypher's talking about is when these things are at 11, you actually don't, like, it is loud, but you don't feel like it's loud because it doesn't hurt your ears. And that's something you can only experience firsthand. And so I'd kick it back to Jamie and Cypher to kind of talk about that and some other points. But that's kind of my take on what you just said.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, and that's the whole thing with the T-Rex roar. That's like, it's like nails on a chalkboard if it's done wrong, and when you can make that sound good, I mean, that was like, okay, it's crystal clear. Nice. Good job, guys.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, speaking of putting them to action, you recently had an event using SRM V-Class. Why don't we talk a little bit about that?
Totally. So I'm the manager over at Astra AVL. We're a DJ shop in Glendale. And so amidst all this COVID stuff that's going on, we still want to try and stay connected to the DJ community. So what we used to do is once a month have a bunch of DJs in the shop and we'd all throw down sets. And now we went a little more virtual with it, like everything else. So we have a limited guest list, but we had 10 female DJs. It was called Yo DJ Hangouts. It's a ladies' first edition. And these ladies came in and they did half an hour, 40-minute sets on vinyl and whatever they were comfortable with. And, played their stuff. And a lot of them played, female artist music, music from female artists. And others were playing on CD decks or whatever the case. But it's a really nice cross collaboration. And we had the SRM 212s there in full effect. To the left of the DJ booth, there's one on the floor there. There's me, chilling out with one of them over there. And then we had one for the guests who were in the other room because we're a two-building facility. So we had 20 people, give or take. And, we had it hooked up to the Bluetooth and whatnot as well. And so it was great. So we kept them at a medium volume during the event because we're recording and all this stuff, and we didn't need it too crazy loud. And at one point, I'm like, okay, let's step it up a notch. So I go over and I kick up the low end a little bit, and by the way, the back panel, and this is one of the things that I've started to love a little bit more, is it's so intuitively easy to use. I've used, QSCs and Yamahas and everything else in between. And I'm usually like, okay, it's down here somewhere. And I go over here and wait, let me go back. And this is like, once just even like 30 seconds of use, you can get to where you're going almost with your eyes closed, which I really like. So anyway, I kicked up the bass a little bit and they're bumping and, they don't sound like they're too stressed. And I'm like, okay, this is good. So we keep turning it up. And every DJ that I talked to afterwards was like, it sounded crystal clear. There's usually you only hear when there are problems. That's usually how entertainers work. If something doesn't work right, it's not working right. Yeah. There was no problems when I probed, and I really got to the nitty gritty. I said, look, what do you use at your gigs? Are you using the KWC or something else? And yeah, well, I've used these because, DJs, we borrow from friends or we use what's around or we're creative with our sourcing, and everyone said, yes, these slayed the K12s that they've, and I've used the K12s and the K12.2s. These absolutely, to me, are more robust in sound. They're clearer. The workflow of the unit makes more sense for me, and the accessibility of some of the features that are on there, they're made for guys who maybe don't know everything about sound design, but want to have the ability to tune things like someone who does. And that's really powerful when you're working in the field like I am, and you got to change things quickly, or you need to tweak it, but you're not exactly sure which frequencies need to go up or down. The speech, the club mode, the live, and the flat. I've just been scrolling between those a lot. I use mine primarily as flat here, but in our stores event, we use them on club mode, and I really kind of made a bump a little. Everyone loved them. They got rave reviews, and I think it was honest opinions. I couldn't disagree with them.
Thank you. Let's backtrack a little bit. Let's start up with setup. Sometimes it's hard for people or intimidating to get started with setup. Maybe they're not an engineer. It's your dad throwing up a speaker in the backyard. I'm not saying your dad's not Anyway, I'm going to move past that. How easy was it to get set up and choose the right EQ and all that?
Sure. So. First things first is I was warned out the box, I'm going to have to do a firmware update. And usually I'm like, great, I'll put that right next to doing my dishes and my laundry. I'm not a big fan of firmware, even though you're supposed to do them, because with DJ companies, it takes a while. Like, you got to do it just right. And if you screw it up, you break the unit. So, but with this, it's like, as soon as my iPad was there, it connected to the SRM. It did it for me. I put it down, just went back to whatever I was doing, came back, boom, done. There was no other setup involved. So that was very nice, makes my life simple. And in terms of Bluetooth connectivity, like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, you're connected, no problem. The SRM app works really nicely. You can have all the features on the back of the unit on the app. So if you want to stay mobile, like I do, like move around a lot, you have that ability there. And, I think that in terms of someone who doesn't know anything about audio, if you know how to at least plug something in, or at least connect via Bluetooth, you can use these speakers. They're like kind of dummy proof for the most part. I shouldn't say that. There's a wide demographic out there, but I will say that they're not complicated whatsoever. I think a lot of the time when someone makes something, an engineer, versus by the time it gets to the guy who uses it, there's a gap in communication, and the application as well doesn't correlate all the way across. You're like, hey, why didn't they put this in there? And it's like, you know what, you guys did put it in there. So I could tell that, you guys did an awesome job, Matt and everyone else, of thinking about how the end user's using this and then using the technology available to kind of make it all patch together. But it's not cumbersome for me. I don't have to sit there fiddling with a bunch of stuff. It's just pretty much, I'm an audio guy, so I know what EQs are supposed to look like. I can get to the EQ quickly. Great. I know how to connect Bluetooth because I have an iPhone. I can get to the Bluetooth page in like 3 scrolls, like bop, 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 boom, I'm right there. And so that's super important because, like I said, usually you got 100 other things going on and you need your audio to work flawlessly and quickly. And when I power these on, like within 2 seconds, like audio's coming out, which is really nice. You don't have to wait for like long startup times or anything like that. And I know this is, again, I'm not going to go into more technical stuff because Matt can take over all of that, but for longevity of a product, that's really important. Obviously everyone's bought stuff that the poor man pays twice kind of thing, although these are not like for the rich man. These are actually very, I would say, price conscious, but you want something that's going to last 6 years, 8 years, 10 years. Those are the speakers people love, but I also want to make sure they're not going to burn out just from average use. These things have temperature sensors to make sure the unit's not overheating. And I think every DJ out there who's worth their salt has blown a speaker or two at some point in their time or overheated a speaker. When I was a kid, I used to hold fans and ice like all around my equipment because I knew it was just about to go. I mean, we struggle with, this is 20 years ago, but we struggle with those things, and now it's nice that there are things here where I don't have to think about it, make my life easier, make it sound good, and that's all I ask,
For sure. And I think it's a good point. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
I just had a couple of add-on points before we transition around that. Like, good reminder on 6-year warranty. Why? Because we believe in the product. The firmware update that you mentioned, that's another unique piece. Because we can connect to these speakers wirelessly, the update that you just conducted actually is another round of voicing improvement. So we reserve the right to continue collecting customer feedback and adding minor features and tweaks and voicing tweaks to this product.
How dare you?
As the life cycle goes along. I know. How dare we listen to our customers and implement what they want? And then the last thing to your point about, DJs blowing speakers up, like, we designed this product for people who run things in the red. Try to blow it up. We dare you,
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with that. I can feel, I'm very sensitive to audio. Like, someone puts a water bottle on my desk, I'm like, that's not happening today. And when I'm turning up speakers, I feel like intuitively, I can tell when they're like, it's like you're driving a car and you can tell you're pushing it too hard. It made me nervous because I didn't feel any of that when I was at 10. I mean, 10 and a half, 11. I didn't feel like I was about to break something, and I kind of wanted to see if I could. So you guys beat me on that one.
And I definitely like you speaking to like your uses. You're obviously very experienced in the audio industry, and a lot of people aren't. So what's cool about this specific model and just Mackie in general is that we make gear for everybody, for the engineer and for the person that just took it out of the box and wanted to use it that day. And yes, there's EQ modes that are there for people, if they are starting, but you can also deep dive into the speaker and set it up the way you want it to. So I like that it's versatile for people who do want a quick, I'm going to put it on a quick EQ mode, or I'm going to tweak it a little bit more once I start using it more and learning more about sound. So just to kind of speak, that it's easy for anybody to use.
Well, that's the thing about versatility. It's probably the most important tool that we have now. That's why people carry Swiss Army knives, not a spoon. Like, it doesn't make sense. And so for me, yeah, I'm a professional in the studio, but I also do a bunch of stuff outdoors or indoors. I mean, to be able to switch the voicing modes and the speech modes, I got clients who are now, because of COVID, they're doing a lot of outdoor gym stuff. They're moving all the spin bikes outside. And, and even retail is moving outside as well and stuff like that. And drive-in movie theaters, we're doing a ton of those at our shop, So all of that stuff requires a little bit of different EQ modulation. And the option right in there is key. The Bluetooth is awesome because, again, if I'm at home, I might just hardline in. But if I'm going to take this sucker out to a friend's house or to a backyard boogie, or if it's, I'm going to pair it with a sub, all that power is scalable up and down. So that makes it extremely versatile. And that's, for me, I wanted to get the best bang at it. Let's say, why do people love jeans? Because you can wear them all year. You can wear them with any different top. They work in so many different occasions, right? You can wear them to barbecues. You could probably wear them to funerals. I don't know, but point being is that you get more use out of something that is a daily reoccurring thing in your life. And so for these, I could imagine taking these to any of those locations, even if it's a quick pop up and we're doing, hey, we just need to put this guy on a speaker stand and we need to get some information out there to guide these people through whatever outdoor setting we're doing. This is the perfect solution. And having the stereo as well is something that I haven't seen in any other speaker, whether it's pro or consumer. I've seen maybe some Bluetooth application and some other brands, but it's not stereo. You still have to hard line into the other one and you're playing in mono. And for a guy like me who loves his audio, I want that, having that ability to stereo. I'm never going to go back to mono for Bluetooth. And that's the reason why I stayed away from Bluetooth for a long time, because it just didn't give me exactly what I wanted in terms of control. And now like SRM Connect is just like taking care of all of that for me.
And I wanted to ping Matt on this one. We're getting some comments about the modes. Could you dive in a little bit into the different modes that we offer? I know Cypher brought up like being able to throw it up, and maybe you have a speech to give. And I know we're pretty specific about how we set those up. Could we dive into that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it earlier, but I'll quickly run through them all again. So with the flat mode, it's exactly that. If you want to just start from, your bare bones music listening, for example, right? And DJ is a perfect example of that. If you just want to listen to music and have no EQ and have these things sound great, that's really the mode that you're looking for. Flat is flat. There's a live mode as well. So one of the phenomenons when you get a bunch of different instruments and microphones together on a stage, like a full band, it's really easy for low frequencies to build up. And so there's just a little bit of a low mid suck out, like around 160 to 200 right in there, where we just kind of take care of some of the mud for you, and then you can mix the rest of the show. So that's optional. If you really know what you're doing, you can stay in flat mode. If you'd prefer a little bit of help, that's what the live mode is for. Monitor mode I mentioned as well. When you have a speaker that you wedge down onto a stage, when that speaker couples with the wood stage, if you don't do anything to it, it's going to have lots of unwanted low frequency buildup, and that just continues to kind of perpetuate that problem. So we have sucked out a significant amount of that, and then also there's a notch around 800 hertz. So if you've never mixed a monitor before, you can just put it in that mode. If you have and you like the monitor mode and then you want to do some cuts on top of that, you can do that too. Or if you just want to stick with your flat speaker and use a 31 band graphic, you can do that too. Club mode, just a basic DJ smile. There's shelving, EQ bumps of about 3 dB below 100 and above 10K. So if you want more bass and more brightness without really doing anything, just touch that button and you'll instantly get a little bit of smile curve. And then speech as well. Like we mentioned, there's not only a little bit of EQ in there, sort of optimized for a vocal microphone, like if you have an SM58 or something like that, or even our own dynamic microphone, the EM89D, you'll just sound good. If you don't know what you're doing, there's a compressor in the channel strip as well. You just plug a dynamic mic in, put it in speech mode, start talking to people, and school teacher, mobile house of worship, someone who's not an audio engineer will sound great. And then again, those indoor-outdoor voicing modes, no one else is compensating for the frequency loss that occurs, the energy loss, if you will, when you take a speaker from an indoor environment to outdoor. So that if you want your speaker to sort of perform at its loudest and best, just one use case example, you're a DJ in an outdoor setting, pretty common these days. Put it in outdoor mode, because that's not mutually exclusive to the voicing modes. Every single one of the voicing modes can be used in indoor or outdoor mode. So outdoor club mode, for example, would be the way to get the loudest, most bass hound sort of sound that you're going for. That note's for Cypher, who has called himself a bass hound. So try that one out.
I mean, I've DJed in clubs all over, New York and Philly, East Coast, and I've heard, thousands of people, and we got, function ones or whatever the case. I've heard terrible sound. I've heard like good sound. So over the years, I've become accustomed to be able to spot in one or the two, and it all again comes down to the reproduction of that sound. The SRM V class really gives you the quality. If you're looking for like the quality of a really dialed in system of a really high end club, but you want it, something that can fit in your car, then like you guys nailed it. It's just so clear. And to me, like, now I do lighting design as well. So hence the Lighthouse and all that. I've expanded, but the reason being is that frequency is how we shape our environment. It's the aesthetics, it's the sound. Light and sound are very closely related, whether people know it or not, because it's how it's affecting our experience. And at the end of the day, as an entertainer, or if you're trying to deliver a message, the clarity of that experience and the quality of it is going to make it a lasting impact. So that's why people are always like trying to improve their sound. Hey, let me get a processor. Trying to improve their lighting. They do a live stream and they're like, let me look better in the background. So being able to reach that level of clarity of a very large venue, but in a very small, confined thing. And by the way, it's not heavy. I can pick this thing up 100 times, no problem. And the back is super lit up and everything's really bold green for when you're highlighting or selecting something. And so for a guy like me who's like slowly losing his hearing and his vision, like that stuff really helps in the dark too, because I can be at an angle and not even be totally looking at the back of it, and I can get exactly to where I want to go. And as most of us know, as a DJ, you're always like trying to get behind the speaker to like tune it to how you want to. So little stuff like that gives me the convenience that I want from a modern in my house or in a venue, kind of smaller venue like speaker. But then I have the ability to have the clarity that you would expect from a well-defined venue. So that versatility, again, going back to that, is like nailed it. I love that.
Yeah, there was, in fact, reminded me of a couple points. So for those that don't want to have an LED, you want your speaker to go into stealth mode, you can turn it off. We also have a signal present mode for it. So it's an awesome troubleshooting tool. So basically, if you're putting signal through the speaker, you can see the light come on when it's in signal present mode. So if you have speakers all over the venue and you want to make sure they're turned on and playing audio, just put them all in signal present mode. And then whenever they go silent, the light will go off as well. So that's super cool. And then the stuff you can do with the screen as well on the physical product itself. You can make that so it times out. You can also make that so it locks. So if you're in a venue where you've got kids or people who aren't experienced with audio who like to touch things, you can lock them out of it with a passcode, so that you make sure your audio is not impacted by people messing with your gear, like when you're at a trade show, for example.
For sure.
When I'm doing private events, I usually bring an extra guy who goes over to the speaker to make sure we can hear the audio coming out. And I guess I can fire that guy now, because the indication on the front does his job for him, So no, but really, that's the thing is when you're setting up anywhere, you're like, okay, am I getting audio everywhere? Does it sound right? Are they leveled the same? And you're kind of like walking around, and every little moment takes up more time, especially if the client's on you. They're asking you for revisions. You haven't finished setting something else up, and you don't have the agenda or something like that. All of those things build stress. And basically what we're trying to do is like bring all that stress down and bring the quality up as an end user. I feel, at least for me, it's like, I don't want any headaches. You don't cause me headache. We're on a great start. You have great sound, we're at a better start, so. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what other types of events can you see yourself using these speakers in? I know you've done DJ stuff. We're in a new time, so there's a lot of unique ways out there people are using things like this.
Yeah, through my shop, Astra AVL, we're doing stuff for an outdoor pop-up, like I mentioned. So churches as well. They want something easy. A lot of those guys don't know much about audio. They need something that's plug and play. And the less phone calls I get, how do you use this, the better. So stuff like small retail businesses, Spin Cycle Studios. Educational as well, because now we're moving a lot of the educational programs we've created to an outdoor space, like good behavior workshops that I'm doing for some schools and arts programs and stuff like that. So this makes it nice, quick, and easy. And then, if you need general background music for something, be able to just connect to your phone real quick through the SRM Connect app gives you something where you don't need to bring an extra setup. I don't need to bring a controller in this and that. If really all I need is just to stream, get some music playing. And it also avoids me having to buy. Usually, like when I have speakers or when I was selling speakers, it's like, oh, you want Bluetooth? Let me sell you this adapter with it, and just make sure you don't lose this thing. Tape it to the back of your speaker, and it's like every audio guy knows the best way to do things is to remove as many interconnecting pieces and get straight from the source to the output. And so anywhere that I could see that coming in handy, I could use. I'm excited to see as the year progresses because we are in a different time. So there's going to be a lot more outdoor use, which is great that you guys have the outdoor indoor setting. And it'll probably unveil more and more how I'm going to be able to use these. For right now, you're right. It's been in the studio. We've done, live stream events and had a bunch of DJs rock out on them. And then there's the commercial aspect, which is something that's simple and easy to use for someone who might be a business owner. They might, have a church. They might have whatever the case. Something that you can take out the box and use pretty much immediately is important. It's kind of how Apple does their thing. It's like out the box, it's ready to go. It's streamlined. It works great. And that's a level of user interactiveness that appeals to everybody because just cuts the headache out.
Yeah. Real quick, just an important point. You don't actually have to install the app to stream Bluetooth either. Like that's for the extra control and stuff. But if you've got somebody who's not tech savvy and they don't want to install an app, whatever the case is, you can just stream to the thing like any other speaker. So there's that. And we've also seen other uses for them out in the field, drive-in movie theaters, mobile houses of worship. So it'll be interesting as things progress to see where these speakers find themselves. But they're definitely suited to pre and post-COVID times. But like to your point, Cypher, having that outdoor mode, especially while so many things are moving outdoors, is a really awesome distinction for this product to have.
Yeah, but I think every DJ struggles with if you've ever DJed outside, especially your first time DJing outside, you're like, where did my sound go? It sounds so much better inside. And then you start to realize, oh crap, they have these things called acoustics and sound disperses. And so you really do have to tune things to that environment and having something that does it. I mean, there's no other speakers out there like you guys said that do that. So good job.
And there's 10 user presets, so you can have them, ready, set up for you to go whatever application you're using them for. So I like that preset a lot. And like you said, everything's going outside. You've done some teaching and a use that I don't know if you've heard of it yet, but I have some teacher friends who utilize Bluetooth speakers for metronome. So a lot of these classes are going outside, and I can imagine that it's going to be hard for orchestra teachers and band teachers who have to be very distant, so this is a perfect time for them to utilize this mode in a product that anybody could run, even the student. And they can lock them out if they don't want to messing with the settings, so that's cool too.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Is there anything else you wanted to add, anybody?
I could start fishing through questions here while you guys...
Yeah, I know we had some building up here. But yeah, we touched a lot of bases. Thank you so much, Cypher, for coming on.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I mean, just so people know, I'm using this in my home studio with the Big Knob Studio Plus. It's right over here. And it makes my life so much easier. So if you're going to move into whether, you're doing studio production or what have you, get an interface like that because it gives you a little bit more control. And then I also have my MRS10 subwoofer. So I'm interested in patching that in with the SRM 212s because it has that crossover ability in there. If you go to the sub, you go to variable, in case you don't have a DRM. But I'm super excited because that, again, is making my audio system smarter, more intelligent, better sound design, and more control over those frequencies. And that's the name of the game with audio production. So I'm excited to grow into that stuff, as well as the fact that, so far they've been performing awesome. So I always want to feel like there's more for me to explore in something if you want to be more nerdy, because I'm a huge nerd. So it kind of helps. It's not just what you see is what you get. It's like if you want to dive into it, you can, and you can get more customized, with the settings.
Yeah.
Definitely.
One question I saw while you guys were chatting there was, what is up with the 10-inch having the same power amp as the 15? That's a great question because 15-inch woofers can handle way more power in general than 12s and 10s, right? The bigger the woofer, the more power they require and so forth. So really that just comes down to an economy of scale decision. We have the same amplifier platform. The DSP is built into that amplifier platform as well. So it just makes a lot of sense for us to use the same amp across each of the different models, even though if you look at the DBSPL spec, which is actually the really critical spec. The 10-inch does not get, it will not go as low, of course, physics, as the 15, and it won't get quite as loud. So you can also see the scaling dB/SPL on each of these products if you look at the spec sheet. And at the end of the day, that's really the spec to look at. Peak wattage, which all of us manufacturers market on, is kind of a competitive standard, but dB/SPL, max SPL output, is really the spec to look at. And when you compare our output spec to the practical output of anything else under $1,000, you will see in a spec sheet and you will hear in real life that these things do get louder than their relative competitors, whether it's a 15, 12, or 10-inch competitor. Let's see what else we have here.
I would jump on that too if I could just add something to what Matt says.
Please.
The whole like stickers. I see a lot of speakers with stickers that say 1,000, 2,000 watts, and the average person might not be able to like look at a speaker and like to see the differences because cosmetically a lot of them might look similar. Most of them, while they boast about a 2,000 watt peak, they would blow at a 2,000 watt peak, and I know this from personal experience and whatnot. And so to say, okay, this thing does go to 2,000, and then to crank it all the way there and achieve that and maintain that and hear it, like Matt was saying, it's the proof is in the pudding, And I would totally invite anyone, if you're in LA, like come check these out at Astra AVL because they got them on the floor. Hear them for yourself, but that kind of quality is very evident. It's like if you buy a projector online, they all say like 5,000 lumens and 6,000 lumens. And if you pay a couple $100, that thing is like maybe 1,000 lumens at best. They just write it on the box. So that's good enough for these Chinese companies sometimes. And that's what the problem with marketing is. It devalues the word of people like you who like actually mean it. And, but when you experience them, like I said, the proof is in the pudding. You can hear it. There's a noticeable difference in improved sound. Noticeable meaning, I'm not talking myself into it. I can. These have become like my new favorite loudspeakers, and that says a lot for me because I'm extremely picky, like most audio guys are out there. We like what we like.
That was actually one of the comments was Cypher's a tough critic, so what he says can be believed.
Yeah.
That is true.
So we're right around about an hour, I think. You can always email us at Mackie.com. You can always talk to our tech support folks, etc., or reach out to us through sales. But I'll keep looking through the questions here for just a minute to see if there's anything else that we think a wider audience would benefit from hearing, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, mine are coming in a little bit later over here on this side. So what's up, everybody? Thank you guys for tuning in.
And if they want to see where I'm keeping mine, I got mine right down there. There you go. So this is part of my studio setup here.
Nice.
But
your studio. Yeah. I love it.
A little bit of a studio peek there, so you can see a little bit about what I'm working with. If people do want to see a little bit more, just check out my YouTube channel. It's in the description, and you can see about some of the toys I play with. I'm going to be doing a video on the SRM V-Class as well. Once I've had more time to really, really hammer out some productions on them. I like to take my time to, really get to know the product. But keep tuned in for that, and I'll go into more of a user-friendly. It won't be as like super technical about stuff. It's just like different ways to apply it, to use it, and what the results are that I've had. So,
thank you, Cypher. Did you find anyone?
I'm not seeing anything else for now. There's a couple of folks I'll probably get back with individually on DM or whatever. But why don't we go ahead and close her out? Cypher, thank you so much. This has been a fun interaction. Again, like I said, when we make bold claims like loudest, lowest, best sounding, again, they don't mean anything unless they're backed up by a real user. So thank you so much for coming on and giving us your real feelings about these guys and how they stack up against some of the primary competitors too. I mean, that's what people really want to know at the end of the day. They're already in the market for a loudspeaker. Which one do they need? Of course, we think it's this one, and we thank you for also giving us your support,
Happy to be here. I would definitely recommend, before anybody buys a speaker, listen to these first, because listening is believing. And my word, you can take that to the bank. So appreciate you guys having me on, though. Happy to share a little bit with other people who might. And you guys did a great job. I learned a couple things, as you went along. That's what webinars are great for. Is you always want to be educating ourselves about what the tools that we're using in the field, because otherwise you're like a painter who doesn't know that the color purple exists. And so these are really important, these interactions you guys have with your Mackie fans and potential fans. And I am appreciative to be able to be part of that, because I was once the guy who was on always looking for the advice on something. And I always would wish someone would just be like, straight up, tell me what they think, where do they use them? And you guys have provided a platform for me. So that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cypher. And for you guys who have tuned in, you can even download the app right now on your device and mess with it and see how it flows. It's absolutely free. Yeah. Well, cool. Thank you, Matt Redman. And thank you all for spending time with us today to talk about awesome gear with our obviously very awesome people. So again, I'm Jamie Hernandez. I am the host of the Ins and Outs podcast with Mackie, which is a show about awesome gear and awesome people. We bring you musicians, engineers, podcasters, streamers, and sometimes even the occasional Mackoid. So make sure that you subscribe on your favorite channel or your platform of choice to get all the latest Mackie updates as soon as they are out. Thank you for joining.